Hi, Claire Vintage here. I'd like to first bring forward I'd like to talk about how I kind of did research this week, and I started by looking at major statistics such as the amount of people in prison or incarcerated in the U.S., and then also the literacy rates of the people incarcerated, the numbers of people who had children who were incarcerated, and though this is a good place to start, one of the sources I found did mention how sometimes people, like groupings, really, or many times, or groupings can't always tell the whole story, such as a murderer can be placed in the same category as let's say a person who was, or a serial killer, or a person who committed one murder can be placed in the same category as someone who committed multiple murders, or someone who or I shouldn't say just, but say someone was the watch guard when a robbery was committed and a person accidentally died during the robbery. The person who was watching would be possibly liable for murder. They could be charged under the same or they could be put put in the same category as people who are also in prison for killing multiple people by their own will. And so this week I talked to Rita, and we kind of delegated who was going to be doing what for our final project. I don't have the proper app to do the voiceover part, and since we can't meet together in person, I was hoping she'd be able to do that, and she said she would, and then I'd help a little bit more with the research, and also she could help kind of, together we'd make contributions to how this affects literacy. So the first thing I want to point out that I thought was personally really interesting was the literacy rates based on the PIAAC literacy and numeracy scales showed that the U.S. prison and the U.S. household literacy average scores were not significantly different for African American and Latino, but for people grouped in the category of white and other, the numbers were considered significantly different. Now, what this means is that there was a difference of a standard deviation between denoted by the asterisks. There was a standard deviation difference in the average literacy score in the prison system, and then compared to the household. So I just think this is really interesting because it suggests that literacy, at least for when you're considering ethnicity, is significantly different within the white population, and then the Hispanic or Latino, Hispanic included Latino, and then African American was included in the Black population of this study. So this was in 2012 and 2014, and I just think it's interesting that people in prison and in the household at home for a different ethnicity were considered the same. So moving on to the next topic that I found was interesting. I have a personal connection with this. Whenever I had a loved one in prison, I saw that there was an option, not where they were, but coming in the future, to video chat with them, which seemed like a great idea and would actually be a challenge that I would consider to the text, because for a person very far away from where their loved one is incarcerated, it could be helpful to have that video communication. And on my side of it at that time, I thought, wow, this would be great for family members in prison, and a son and daughter keeping up with their parent. And I just thought overall it'd be great. What I had not realized until I did further research, like today, was that many of these prison systems are substituting video visitations for in-person visitations. So they're not allowing, or they make in-person visitations something that only people who, or kind of like a reward for people who are on considered like a reward for good behavior. That's what I was trying to say, getting at. So the site I have pulled up here is actually a blog post going into deeper information about a recent, I guess at the time, this wasn't from 2019 actually, Feel Good in October, or no, 2018, excuse me, from a Feel Good video that went viral on Twitter of a person who was seeing his child for the first time. And up there in the title, you can actually see that it says video visitation as punishment. Now, I didn't really see at the time, back when I first found out about videotation, that this would be the case. But seeing as it is actually replacing that in-person connection, I do see how it would really be a problem for the overall person's morale, the family morale, and the child's development. As we've been reading, how important that human connection within the first 2 years is so important. And moving forward, those video visitations and it actually cost me money just to receive a voicemail that my loved one was in prison. So, and then I had to spend more money to leave them a voicemail back, and speak with them further would have costed me more. And if a person is being monitored, not only are they being monitored by what they say and how much time they get to spend with their child, but also they're financially under restrictions when they use this service. I can definitely see how it would possibly be a detriment to them. So moving on to the next topic, I'd like to talk about the financial obligations that a family entails when one of the people in their family is in prison. So there is money to keep up connections, like I had just mentioned, and there's also the potential of child support. So one of the articles that I had found talked about child support and how certain individuals actually do go to jail, and this could be for a short time, if any at all, for back paid child support, as well as once a person goes to jail, the amount of child support they pay becomes, you can sign to have your child support taken away, or as something you don't have to pay, because now you're not making the same income or a possible income that you were making before. So, also, as I was trying to say earlier, that the question of child support, and if a person wasn't paying a child support before, how much are they contributing to the child's life, or are they contributing in a social way, would be an interesting, I think, case study. We'd have to look at something in particular. a suggestion I would have for this is to make it illegal for the prisons or anyone to eliminate contact with other people in their life who better it, and also direct family members such as children, your spouse, or parents. One way that the system could be utilized is charging for connections outside of these people who are furthering an inmate or a child's education, such as let's say someone affiliated in a gang, for instance, or someone who doesn't that inmate's life. Now, going on, I found this website here specifically for children of incarcerated parents, and it includes parents, caregivers, the correctional personnel, school administration, teachers, the child welfare, and the social worker, and the clinical protection. Now, this is a lot of people and probably would not be good for stability in the child's life, though it is good to hear or good to see that there are sites like this being created who keep the child and community growth in mind when dealing with the children of imprisoned parents. A final note on financial obligation and looking at the parent of a parent in prison in regards to literacy is that if a person goes to prison and they're no longer liable for their child support, and then continuing that they have to pay for every minute that they are spending with their kids, they may try to focus on things like just making sure their kid knows that they love them and everyday activities that their kids partaking in, rather than things directed towards literacy, such as reading together and asking their kid, what do you think about this character, and developing those skills. As my research, it seems that the morale is really not there for a prisoner, especially due to all the financial, just having someone watch, and also the time spent with their children being limited. For a prisoner to take on all these three major aspects, well, it makes sense that they would not see themselves as the one to want to or need to push a child's literacy skills, though this could help their child not be in the same place as they are in the future, and they might not even see it. Overall, through my research, the reflection I've gotten is that in the U.S. there definitely are programs and studies looking at this, but I think financially taking away that burden off of families would be a good way to actually make them more impactful. And I'd be really interested to see internationally how this issue is dealt with, and that's what I'd like to look at next. As me and Rita come together, hopefully we can find some correlations between this, such as my idea would be looking at more dangerous prisons and then the percentage of people who are literate in them, or just the country overall. Thank you.